Your prostate is starving for something it cannot make itself. That's what I tell every new patient who walks into my office carrying a bag full of failed supplements, a urology report stamped moderate to severe enlargement, and the face of a man who hasn't slept through the night in years. The thing it's starving for, the thing that literally regulates whether your prostate cells multiply out of control or stay in check, costs less than $12 at any pharmacy in this country. CVS, Walgreens, Walmart. It's sitting right there on the shelf, right next to the vitamins and the cold medicine. The problem is that 99% of the men who buy it are making the same 3 mistakes that render every single pill almost completely useless. And because nobody is explaining those mistakes, not their urologist, not the supplement label, not the dozens of YouTube videos they've already watched, they keep buying bottle after bottle, feeling nothing, and concluding that natural approaches just don't work. I'm here to tell you something different. The approach works. The execution is the problem. Stay with me through this entire video because I'm going to break down exactly what this item is, why your prostate maintains a higher concentration of it than almost any other tissue in the human body, and the precise protocol, the specific form, the correct dose, the right timing window, and one critical cofactor that determines whether you get real, measurable results or just very expensive urine. I'll also name the specific version of this supplement that is functionally near useless, because it happens to be the cheapest and most commonly sold form on pharmacy shelves, and most men never know the difference. There's also a third factor that ties everything together, something beyond the supplement itself that most men never address, and it may be the single biggest reason BPH keeps progressing, even when guys think they're doing everything right. I'll get to that. But first, I need you to hear about Robert. Robert was 64 years old, a retired firefighter from Ohio, the kind of man who never complained about anything. He'd spent 30 years running into burning buildings and never once asked for help. So by the time he came to my office, things had gotten bad. His fourth urologist, had just told him he was a, quote, good candidate for TURP surgery, which is the procedure where they pass a resectoscope through the urethra and shave tissue off the prostate from the inside. Robert didn't want surgery. He'd watched his father go through that same procedure at 67, and his father dealt with retrograde ejaculation and urinary incontinence for the rest of his life. So Robert came to me instead, and the first thing he placed on my desk was a gallon-sized Ziploc bag filled with supplements: saw palmetto, beta-cytosterol, Pygeum africanum, something called a prostate support formula from Amazon. He'd been taking every single one of them consistently for 9 months straight. His IPSS score, the International Prostate Symptom Score, the standard clinical tool for measuring BPH severity, had improved by exactly 0 points in 9 months. He was still waking up 4 to 5 times per night. His urinary stream was still weak and hesitant and stopping and starting. He was sleeping maybe 4 hours total on a good night, running on gas station coffee, and had quietly stopped making plans with friends because he was always calculating the distance to the nearest restroom. He sat across from me looking like a man who had run out of options. Within the first 10 minutes of our intake conversation, I found the problem, and it had absolutely nothing to do with any of the supplements he was already taking. So let me explain what is actually happening inside the prostate when it begins to enlarge, because understanding the mechanism is what makes the solution feel inevitable rather than accidental. The prostate is a glandular organ roughly the size and shape of a walnut, sitting directly below the bladder and wrapped concentrically around the urethra, the tube that drains urine from the bladder out through the penis. When the prostate enlarges, a condition clinically called benign prostatic hyperplasia, or BPH, it compresses that urethra the same way a hand squeezes a garden hose. The result is everything men dealing with this condition know intimately: a weak, stuttering stream, a bladder that never feels fully empty after voiding, urgency that arrives with no warning, and the nighttime bathroom trips that are slowly dismantling your sleep, your energy, your cognitive sharpness, your mood, and quietly, in ways men rarely talk about openly, your sense of yourself. The masculinity piece of this is real, and it's under-acknowledged. When a man can't sleep through the night, can't be spontaneous, can't sit through a 2-hour movie without mapping the exit route, can't be present with his partner without that low-level anxiety humming in the background. That erodes something deep. I see it in the office every week. The primary biological driver of prostate enlargement is a hormone called dihydrotestosterone, or DHT. DHT is manufactured from testosterone through the enzymatic action of 5-alpha reductase, and when it binds to receptors inside prostate cells, it sends a signal to divide and grow. The pharmaceutical industry has spent decades and billions of dollars developing drugs designed to block 5-alpha reductase, finasteride and dutasteride being the most prescribed, and those drugs do work. The problem is that roughly 15 to 20% of men who take them experience sexual dysfunction, depression, anxiety, and some experience what's been called post-finasteride syndrome, where those effects persist long after stopping the medication. What rarely gets mentioned in a conventional urology appointment is that your body already has a natural 5-alpha reductase inhibitor embedded in its own biochemistry. It's not a drug, it's a mineral, and your prostate requires it in concentrations 10 times higher than almost any other soft tissue in your body. That mineral is zinc. And the cascade that happens when zinc becomes depleted, which it reliably does in aging men for reasons I'll explain in a moment, is directly linked to uncontrolled DHT production, uncontrolled prostate cell proliferation, and progressive BPH. That's the mechanism nobody puts on the supplement bottle. The prostate gland in a healthy man contains zinc concentrations approximately 10 times higher than most other soft tissues in the body. Some research puts it even higher, up to 15 times the concentration found in liver tissue. The prostate doesn't hoard zinc randomly. It requires it for multiple fundamental regulatory functions, inhibiting 5-alpha reductase activity, supporting apoptosis, the programmed cell death that prevents abnormal accumulation of prostate cells, and maintaining the zinc-dependent enzymatic processes that keep glandular tissue organized and functional. Research published in the journal Prostate and indexed in NIH databases has consistently confirmed that men with BPH and men with prostate cancer show significantly lower zinc concentrations in their prostatic tissue than men with healthy glands. The depletion isn't subtle, and it isn't random. Zinc gets pulled down by chronic low-grade prostatic inflammation, by alcohol consumption, by certain prescription medications including proton pump inhibitors and diuretics, by poor dietary intake, and by the simple biological reality that intestinal zinc absorption decreases measurably in men over 50, while losses through normal cellular turnover continue unchanged. The result is a slow, progressive depletion over years, the kind that doesn't show up as deficiency on a standard blood panel, but that quietly strips the prostate of the one mineral it depends on most. Think of it this way. Your prostate is essentially a quality control facility. Zinc is the facility manager, the one who walks the production floor, flags defective products, keeps the machinery calibrated, and tells the line workers when to stop making something that's gone wrong. When zinc levels are adequate, the manager is on the floor and the factory runs cleanly. When zinc drops below the functional threshold, the manager disappears. The production line keeps running, nothing gets flagged, defective cells don't get terminated the way they should. 5-alpha reductase starts working overtime, converting testosterone to DHT at rates the body was never designed to sustain, and the gland grows. The garden hose gets squeezed tighter, the bathroom trips multiply. The sleep fragments into 90-minute intervals, interrupted by urgency that feels like an emergency every single time, even at 3 a.m., even at 4, even at 5. And the man lying in bed between those trips stares at the ceiling and wonders what is happening to him. That's where Robert was. And when I ran a comprehensive micronutrient panel on him, something most urologists never order because it falls outside the standard urology workup, his serum zinc came back at 68 micrograms per deciliter, technically within the conventional reference range, which bottoms out around 60. But in functional medicine, we're not looking for the floor of not clinically deficient. We're looking for the range associated with optimal tissue function, which in the context of prostate health is above 90 micrograms per deciliter on serum, and ideally confirmed with a red blood cell zinc test. Robert was running his entire prostate on a zinc reserve that was functionally insufficient. and I knew immediately why 9 months of saw palmetto and beta-cytosterol had produced zero improvement. Those supplements work downstream of the fundamental problem. You cannot restore a process that's been foundationally compromised by a nutrient deficiency, no matter how good the secondary supplements are. You cannot outstack a depleted foundation. I have been in functional medicine for close to 30 years, and I have specialized in men's prostate and hormonal health for the last 18 of those. I've worked with men ranging from their mid-40s catching BPH early to men in their late 70s managing moderate to severe disease alongside conventional treatment. I've followed the research literature coming out of Johns Hopkins, the Cleveland Clinic Wellness Institute, the NIH's National Institute of Diabetes and Digestive and Kidney Diseases, which funds much of the country's foundational BPH research, and functional medicine publications tracking the intersection of micronutrient status and glandular disease. I want to be clear, I am not someone who dismisses conventional urology. Surgery saves quality of life. Medications genuinely help a significant percentage of men, and some men need that level of intervention. What I've dedicated my practice to is ensuring that men understand the biological soil underneath those interventions, the nutritional, hormonal, and inflammatory foundation that determines how quickly things progress and how well any intervention performs. In the domain of prostate health, zinc is the most consistently overlooked foundational element I encounter. Every single week, in patients who have been through multiple urologists and tried multiple supplement stacks, the micronutrient panel reveals the same gap. So let's get into exactly how to use it correctly, because this is precisely where 99% of men go wrong, and the mistakes are specific enough that I can name them one by one. The first and most consequential mistake is the form. Walk into the supplement aisle of any major pharmacy right now and look at the zinc options. The cheapest product, often the store brand, often the one with the largest great value label on the front, is almost certainly zinc oxide. Zinc oxide has a bioavailability in humans of somewhere between 4 and 15%, depending on the research you consult. That means if you are swallowing a 50 milligram zinc oxide tablet every morning, you are absorbing somewhere between 2 and 7.5 milligrams of actual elemental zinc. The rest of it transits your digestive system and exits without doing anything for your prostate. Men take zinc oxide for 4, 5, 6 months, measure their results in continued night trips and a worsening stream, and conclude that zinc doesn't help the prostate. What they've actually concluded is that their intestinal cells don't absorb zinc oxide efficiently, which is a pharmacological fact, not a reflection of zinc's biology. The supplement industry's incentive structure rewards putting the cheapest form in the bottle and calling it zinc. It is technically zinc. It is practically useless for therapeutic purposes. The forms that actually deliver zinc to your tissues are the chelated forms. Zinc picolinate, zinc bound to picolinic acid, achieves bioavailability rates in the 60 to 80% range in head-to-head absorption studies, and specifically demonstrates superior tissue zinc accumulation compared to sulfate and oxide forms. Zinc glycinate and zinc citrate perform similarly. These forms cost a few dollars more per bottle. At the therapeutic dose range I'm about to describe, the cost difference amounts to perhaps $2 or $3 per month. It is, without question, worth it. When you go to the pharmacy, read the label. If it says zinc oxide or zinc sulfate, put it back. Look for zinc picolinate, zinc glycinate, or zinc citrate. Those are the words you're looking for. The second mistake is the dose. Most multivitamins contain between 8 and 15 milligrams of zinc, enough to roughly replace what an average man loses in a day through normal metabolism. That's a maintenance dose for a man with healthy zinc status and a healthy prostate. It is not a therapeutic dose for a man trying to replenish depleted prostatic zinc stores and restore functional 5-alpha reductase regulation. For prostate support, the clinical range I work with is 30 to 45 milligrams of elemental zinc daily from a high bioavailability form. One critical distinction, that is elemental zinc. Many supplement labels list the total compound weight. For example, zinc picolinate 150 milligrams, because the picolinate molecule itself has mass. The elemental zinc content of that tablet might only be 30 milligrams. Look for the elemental zinc line on the supplement facts panel. That's your number, not the compound weight. The third mistake, and this one genuinely can make you feel worse over time, is the copper imbalance. Zinc and copper share the same intestinal absorption transporter, a protein called metallothionein. When you supplement zinc at therapeutic doses long-term without accounting for copper, you progressively displace copper from that transporter and drive your copper stores down. Low copper produces fatigue, joint pain, neurological symptoms, and paradoxically compromised immune function, the opposite of what you're trying to achieve. The clinical guideline I follow is a zinc to copper ratio of roughly 10 to 15 to 1. At 30 to 45 milligrams of zinc, you need 2 to 3 milligrams of copper daily from supplements or diet. Many high-quality zinc formulations designed for extended use already include copper at appropriate ratios. If yours doesn't, add a separate 2 milligram copper supplement. This is non-negotiable if you're going to do this correctly. One thing I've started doing systematically with my patients, because I've seen firsthand that protocol consistency is what separates the men who get measurable results from the men who don't, is having them track their supplementation daily alongside their symptom patterns. How many nighttime trips? How complete the void felt? How the stream compared week to week? The men who do this consistently get results that are, on average, significantly better than the men who take supplements haphazardly. I actually recommend an app called Tomato to the men I work with. It's built around exactly this kind of daily prostate health tracking and protocol monitoring, and I've put the link in the pinned comment below if you want to check it out. When you can see your own data trending in a direction, that's motivating in a way that just hoping it's working is not. Back to the protocol, and specifically to timing, because this is subtle and consistently overlooked. Zinc should be taken with food, not for absorption reasons, but because taking zinc on an empty stomach produces nausea in a significant percentage of men, and men who feel nauseous stop taking their supplements. More importantly, you must separate your zinc from coffee, black tea, and high phytate foods. Phytic acid, found in oatmeal, whole grain bread, raw bran, unsoaked legumes, chelates dietary minerals including zinc and dramatically reduces their absorption. Most American men take their supplements first thing in the morning alongside their coffee and their oatmeal or granola. That combination turns even a high bioavailability zinc supplement into something barely better than zinc oxide in terms of what actually reaches your tissues. Take your zinc picolinate or glycinate with lunch or with a light evening meal. Something moderate in protein and fat, something that doesn't include coffee or heavy grains. That single timing adjustment, in my clinical experience, has produced measurable improvements in zinc status within 6 to 8 weeks in patients who had seen no progress with the same supplement at the same dose taken differently. Let me tell you about Marcus because his case illustrates this timing problem perfectly, and also the emotional dimension of these symptoms that doesn't get enough airtime. Marcus was 58. A software engineer working remotely from Seattle, the kind of methodical person who researches everything thoroughly before he tries it. He'd read the literature on zinc and prostate health, which is more than most men do, and he'd done it right. He bought zinc picolinate, 40 milligrams elemental, a reputable brand. He took it every day for 4 months. Then he called my office because nothing had changed. He was still waking 2 to 3 times per night, still dealing with post-void dribbling. That infuriating, incomplete emptying that leaves a man standing at the toilet waiting for a trickle that takes forever to stop. He mentioned, almost as an aside, that it had started affecting him at work. He was self-conscious about visible damp spots after using the restroom, and it was making him avoid standing up quickly in meetings. That detail stopped me, because that's the actual texture of what these symptoms do to a man's daily life. Not just the clinical IPSS score, not just the flow rate, but the standing ovation of shame and hypervigilance that follows him into every professional and social interaction. When I reviewed Marcus's protocol, I found it immediately. Every morning, zinc picolinate with a large black coffee and a bowl of granola. Optimal form, correct dose, completely negated by the absorption environment. We moved his zinc to dinner, a simple piece of fish or chicken, some roasted vegetables, no grains. Added 2 milligrams of copper. Within 8 weeks, his IPSS score had dropped by 6 points. His nighttime trips went from an average of 3 to 1, sometimes 0. He sent me a message that said it felt like someone had quietly turned the volume down on something that had been screaming inside him for 2 years. His words, not mine. The clinical literature behind this is not thin. A 2011 study published in Biological Trace Element Research specifically measured zinc concentrations across all zones of prostatic tissue in men with BPH versus age-matched healthy controls. The BPH group showed dramatically lower zinc concentrations throughout, and the degree of zinc depletion correlated positively with the severity of BPH symptoms, as measured by IPSS. The central zone, which is the zone most implicated in urinary obstruction as the prostate enlarges, showed the most pronounced zinc deficit. Additional research examining 5-alpha reductase inhibition in prostatic tissue cultures has demonstrated that physiologically relevant concentrations of zinc directly suppress the enzyme's activity. Concentrations that are achievable with proper supplementation, but not with the deficiency states that most aging men are silently carrying. The NIH Office of Dietary Supplements has formally noted that adult men over 50 face a double challenge with zinc: declining intestinal absorption efficiency on one end, and ongoing losses through ejaculation, sweat, and cellular turnover on the other. The prostate's disproportionate zinc requirement sits on top of both of those pressures. The math runs against men who don't actively replenish. Now, the third factor I mentioned at the very beginning, the one that explains why 2 men can follow the same zinc protocol and get dramatically different results. Zinc's uptake into prostatic cells is not passive. It depends on a transporter protein called zinc alpha-2 glycoprotein, or ZAG, which actively shuttles zinc from the bloodstream into the glandular cells of the prostate. Research has shown that ZAG expression is significantly suppressed by chronic prostatic inflammation. So consider what that means. A man can have adequate serum zinc, take the right form at the right dose at the right time, and still fail to replenish his prostatic zinc stores, because inflammation in the gland itself is blocking the transport mechanism. This is why the anti-inflammatory foundation isn't optional. It's what opens the door for zinc to actually get where it needs to go. Without addressing inflammation, you're trying to fill a tank with a blocked inlet valve. The 3 anti-inflammatory interventions I layer in alongside zinc in clinical practice are these. The first is quercetin, 500 milligrams twice daily with meals. Quercetin is a plant flavonoid found naturally in onions, capers, and apples, and it has well-documented activity as a prostatic anti-inflammatory through inhibition of NF-kappa B signaling, which is one of the primary pathways driving inflammatory cytokine production in the prostate. It also demonstrates direct synergistic activity with zinc in suppressing 5-alpha reductase, so the 2 compounds amplify each other. You can find quercetin capsules at the same pharmacy where you're buying zinc picolinate. The combination costs less than $20 per month. The second is a targeted dietary reduction in arachidonic acid, the omega-6 fatty acid that fuels prostaglandin-mediated prostatic inflammation. That means pulling back specifically on commercially raised feedlot beef, processed lunch meats, hot dogs and sausage, and the refined vegetable oils, corn oil, soybean oil, sunflower oil, that dominate most processed food. I'm not prescribing vegetarianism. I'm prescribing 2 meals per week of wild-caught fatty fish, salmon, sardines, mackerel, and switching your cooking oil to extra virgin olive oil. That specific substitution shifts the omega-6 to omega-3 ratio in your cells within 8 weeks and measurably reduces systemic inflammatory markers. The third intervention is pelvic floor release work. The vast majority of men with BPH also carry significant chronic pelvic floor tension, years of sedentary desk work, stress, and unresolved anxiety held physically in the pelvic musculature. That tension mechanically compresses the prostate and worsens urinary symptoms independently of actual gland volume. The intervention is not Kegel exercises, which are concentric contractions that can worsen this kind of tension. The intervention is diaphragmatic breathing paired with active pelvic floor drops, a relaxation and lengthening practice. 10 minutes twice daily. I walk through the exact technique in a dedicated video on this channel if you want the full protocol. Before your next urology appointment, there's one specific conversation I want you to initiate. Ask for a serum zinc test. And if your provider is open to it, ask specifically for a red blood cell zinc level rather than just a standard serum measurement. Because RBC zinc more accurately reflects intracellular zinc stores and prostatic tissue availability. If your result comes back below 80 micrograms per deciliter on serum or shows low normal on RBC zinc, bring that data to the conversation and ask whether functional zinc insufficiency might be a contributing factor to your symptoms. You have the right to that conversation. You have the right to an integrative workup alongside whatever conventional treatment your urologist is recommending. The two are not in conflict. They are complementary, and men who combine them consistently do better than men who choose one and ignore the other. Come to that appointment prepared. Informed patients get better care. That's not an opinion. It's a documented reality in the patient outcomes literature. What changed for Robert was not a complicated overhaul. We identified the zinc oxide buried inside his Amazon prostate formula, 15 milligrams, oxide form, taken at breakfast with coffee, and we replaced it with 40 milligrams of zinc picolinate at dinner. We added 2 milligrams of copper. We added quercetin 500 milligrams twice daily. We ran a CRP level. His C-reactive protein came back at 3.2 milligrams per liter, indicating meaningful systemic inflammation. And we addressed that with 3 grams of omega-3 fatty acids daily and the dietary arachidonic acid reduction I described. 8 weeks later, Robert was waking twice per night instead of 4 to 5 times. That alone was transformative for a man running on years of sleep fragmentation. 12 weeks in, his follow-up pelvic ultrasound showed a measurable reduction in prostate volume, from 68 milliliters to 57 milliliters. His urologist reviewed the images and, to his credit, didn't dismiss what he was seeing. He told Robert that whatever he was doing, keep doing it. Robert called me after that appointment and laughed, a real, genuine laugh. He said he'd slept 6 consecutive hours 2 nights in a row and woken up to his alarm, not to his bladder, for the first time in 4 years. That laugh is the whole reason I built my practice around this work. The conversation about prostate health in this country lives mostly inside fear. Fear of cancer, fear of surgery, fear of the side effects that shadow pharmaceutical management. That fear is real, it's earned, and I take it seriously. But fear can also make men passive, can make them feel like they're waiting for the inevitable rather than actively building the biological conditions in which their prostate stays healthy and recoverable. Zinc is not a cure. No single nutrient is. But it is the most reliably depleted foundational element I identify across hundreds of men with progressive BPH, and restoring it in the correct form, at the correct dose, at the correct time, with the copper balance and the anti-inflammatory foundation in place, produces real and measurable results in a meaningful proportion of men who had already been told they were running out of options. Robert was one of them. Marcus was another. Every week there's another man in the chair across from me who came in with a bag full of the wrong zinc, or the right zinc taken wrong, and who leaves with a protocol simple enough to start that evening. That's the point of all of this. Not complexity, precision. If this kind of evidence-based, integrative approach to prostate health is what you've been searching for, subscribe to this channel. I publish new protocols and research breakdowns every week, and the community of men choosing to take this seriously rather than wait it out is growing every month. The Tomato app I mentioned is linked in the pinned comment below. Use it to track your protocol, your symptoms, your nighttime trips, your progress. The men in my practice who track consistently outperform the ones who don't, every time, because consistency is the variable that matters most once you have the right information. You now have the information. The zinc picolinate is $12 at Walgreens. The copper is $7. The quercetin is $12. Robert's surgery quote was $30,000. Start tonight.